morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live show. I'm so excited to be here with you all this morning. My name is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. And today, I'm asking you to shift your mindset and be a little bit more decisive. As we dive into this Think and Grow Rich book by Napoleon Hill every single week, we ask questions around his 13 principles that he details in this text. And today is going to be a great show as we talk about decision. And not only are we going to talk about decision today, we have a very special guest who's going to demonstrate the decisions that he made in his life over and over again to achieve the success that he has achieved. I want to start off with a quote from the book already from Napoleon Hill. And he says, God seems to throw himself on the side of the individual who knows exactly what he wants or she wants if they determine just to get that. So that's powerful right off the top. And I'm almost going to challenge all of you who are watching this morning. What are you deciding to do today that needs to take place beginning today? So let me bring in my distinguished co-host, and I'm going to start off for sure with the leadership strategist, Galen Begum. Good morning to you, sir. How are you doing today? Wait, Galen, is this a decisive day for you today?
Every day is a decisive day. The question is, do you choose to make the decision, right? So great conversation. I can't wait to get into it because I think that quote in particular that you made is so important and so powerful that you've got the entire universe waiting to do what you tell it to do, but we're reluctant to make a decision. And I believe that the reason we're reluctant to make a decision is because we are afraid of missing out. We think that if we hedge ourselves and kind of wait in the water and wait on the shore and kind of watch that somehow things are going to work out. But this book, this principle, this conversation is going to inform us that it never works out that way. Things never work out as well as when you make a decision. So I can't wait to get into it. This is going to be incredibly powerful.
Galen, you are so right. And I'm going to make a decision right now to pivot to our next co-host there, the master wealth builder, Ann McNeil. Good morning to you. And are you decisive this morning?
Well, I decided to show up. I decided to show up for my life this morning early in preparation for this show because I am so decided to decide. I was just typing something and I'm going to post it right now. And it says that indecision, this is what I'm posting. I just posted it. Indecision and doubt got married. And they birthed a child named fear. And every time I choose not to make a decision, I'm birthing that child named fear. And so I'm very excited this morning. Ann McNeil, of course, the master builder, helping to build stronger and better lives. And I'm very excited this morning to talk about this chapter entitled Decision, which we know as the 7th step toward riches. But it's also the principle that helps us master that, I'm not going to call it evil, but that other principle called procrastination. So let's get started.
And I love that already. You know what? By you just even making that statement, I started having this image in my head. So indecision and doubt got together. They started dating, and then they got married, and then they had some kids. And the first one they had was fear.
Exactly.
And so now it's interesting as we reflect on our own lives. How does indecision, doubt, and their children play into your life?
Exactly.
Wow. And this is powerful already. But we have such a phenomenal show. I want to just get started by talking about our guest. I'm going to tease him a little bit, bring him in, then go back to Think and Grow Rich a little bit, and then open up this conversation for decision overall. So our guest today, ladies and gentlemen, is Earl Cobb. And Earl has had a distinguished career. And I'm not even going to go into all the details, but I'm going to give you a high level, ladies and gentlemen who are listening. 34-year corporate career, business ownership, academia, stellar academic record, and books galore. Books galore. Earl, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to stop. But Earl, welcome to our show this morning. How are you doing today, sir?
Well, thank you very much. And thank you guys. What an opportunity to be here on January 3rd of 2021 and to be with you guys and all of your energy. So I'm glad I made this decision.
I love, and actually, I love, you said January. I know you meant July, but I actually even love that because I look at July 3rd as we cross over into July, the second half of the year, right? And how my mind works is I'm looking forward to see, hey, what the second half of the year presents. What decisions do I need to make for the balance of the year? And Earl, really quickly, before we go into this book even deeper, decisions in your life, as many as there may be, how have, as you reflect on them, all the major ones, that is, how have they impacted you for the better or maybe even for the worse?
There has been many, and of course, the idea of reflection is key. And fortunately, my wife and I, Dr. Charlotte Grant Cobb, will be 39 years this September, and I started a little exercise when we lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, about 12, 13 years ago. We say, let's look back at all of the major decisions that we've made in our life, and let's try to figure out how did we arrive at those decisions. And for those of you who know Charlotte and I, you know that grass doesn't grow under our feet, okay? We've lived in many cities and I've had many opportunities and jobs and people. And so what we decided, to sum it up, okay, as we reflected on all of those decisions, was two things, okay? One is that we mutually agreed as a couple every time. And also, we didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it because it fit into our plan. We already had a plan. And also, we understood that you don't get from A to B in a straight line. So we didn't look at every decision as, well, that's my next one. We look at it as, here's an opportunity to create a launch pad for the next one. And, you know, all of those decisions, I must say, have turned out to be very good decisions, and just blessed to be able to be here with you guys today.
And we're so excited to have you with us as well. I love how you have mentioned not even just the decision there, Earl, but you mentioned also the planning and the strategy that goes on around that. Napoleon Hill does such a phenomenal job and talks about all of these concepts in this book. And as we get ready to look at this video on the 13 steps, I know this has been a major part of your life. This book has been such a major part of your life for so long. Tease this video a little bit for us and maybe give us an idea of what we need to really listen for as we hear these principles.
You know, when I first read the book back in 1972, and I remember it well because that was my sophomore year at Tennessee State University, okay? And when I first got it, I just couldn't put it down, okay? Because, you know, I was born in a very small town in middle Georgia, and I had always been an industrious kid. You know, I asked my 7 sisters and brothers. I'm the kid that school started at 8. I'm up at 5. I'm taking the trash out at 6, and I'm headed across the street to school. Okay. In summers, soon as summer's out, you know, I built the best go-karts every summer. I'd spend all my summer building a different go-kart, okay, because my dad had multiple jobs. One was a carpenter, plumber, do it all back in those days. And I'd get up early because I'd go to Dad's truck and I get the tools that I need that day to do what I was planning to do. That planning already there at an early age. And the thing about it is that it didn't really touch me in terms of having the kind of support that I had, okay, until one day, and I probably was 9 or 10 years old, my dad came home and said, Earl, where's my screwdriver? So I looked as if, well, he said, that's okay. Are you done with it? And that sort of was a key, okay? And if I go back and look through all of the 13 steps that Napoleon Hill laid out, they aren't just steps. You know the words. I mean, you know decisions and perseverance, but it's how they're organized and how they step through a level of thinking. Because as I've learned over the years, particularly in my research in the types of writing that I do, is that most of our things that get in our mind subconsciously, not consciously. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he sort of brings that out so you understand what's back there and gives you the opportunity to throw out the things that aren't going to be healthy for you and to put in those things that will be good for you. And once you put them back there, they're there.
They are there. And McNeil, can you take us into the video today?
Listen, I'm so engrossed in this conversation that listen. There's seldom am I speechless. Today is one of those days, because Earl, listening to you talk about the 1972, and for those that know me, I'm thinking about 1979, 9 p.m., making the decision. Wow. So as each of you listening to this podcast, it does not matter if it's live or in the future, walk with us through these principles that would give you an idea that if you start with a decision, just start with a decision. And then when you think about a decision to do what, as we listen to these principles, Napoleon Hill tells us that the first step is your desire. And as you listen to the video and you think about your desire, what is it that you really want? How much of it do you want? And then you think about your faith that is required. That's what Earl was saying to us. These principles are like a step ladder. You can't start at the top. You got to start at the bottom with desire. But from desire, you go to faith. Do you really have the faith? Are you willing to build the faith that is required? Then from that faith, you're going to go to your auto-suggestion, the programming of your mind from your desire affirmation statement. Then from there, what specialized knowledge do you need in order to achieve your desire? Then the imagination that comes up from that specialized knowledge to give you the tools that are required to attain your desire. But what about the plans, the organized plans? And then the decision to act on those plans, the persistence that it requires to pursue and persist with the spirit of excellence toward that desire. And of course, you need to have a mastermind group to hold you accountable. And don't forget about the mystery. Yes, that mystery called sex transmutation. And from there, the power, and Earl talked about it, the subconscious mind, your brain, the sixth sense, and that would take us into the video. So walk with us as we walk with you through this video.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically. But we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical. But what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
These 13 steps are the backbone, the spine of this book, Think and Grow Rich. For those of you who are very new to the show or new to this text, these 13 steps are really are what everything else springs from. And I want to make sure that I acknowledge all the individuals who are with us watching the show today, who are on YouTube Live, who are on Facebook Live this morning. Good morning to you. I see you, Misty. We see you, Laverne, Tashana. Good morning to you all. Ruby, who else? Johnny Lloyd, good to see you for sure. Regina, good morning to you. Aaliyah, good morning. Galen, a lot of people listening in to these steps, listening in to see how decision can play a role in their life. So Galen, I'm going to pass the baton to you because Earl has laid out just a path that was a success for us that he has achieved in his life. So definitely, what are your thoughts? Any questions for him as we move forward?
Yeah, this is going to be a great conversation, and I think it always this chapter always brings me back to something that Steve Jobs said, that everything connects looking backwards. Right? When you look back, you can see how the dots connect, but when you're in the middle of it, when you're on the other side of it, it seems like everything is so massively important. And one of the things, as I think about my own corporate career, the things that I thought was important then, come to find out they weren't as important as I thought. And the
Mhm.
things that I thought were really, really insignificant, that made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious as to how that translates to your life, and how you view decision making now. Knowing that, I'm sure things over your 34 career, as you look back, things that you thought were really, really important, big meetings, big presentations, important people, come to find out they didn't really matter as much as you thought at the time. But it
Mhm.
was those small things. It was that meeting. It was that conversation. It was that comment that you made to, your future wife, that made all the difference in the world.
Right. One of the things that really resonates when I reflect back that I didn't think of at the time was really the feedback that I actually receive from people that I helped, or people that are mentored, or people that were affected by my decision. I mean, as you know, as you progress up the corporate ladder, it gets lonelier and lonelier in terms of people that you can really be candid with, and you've got to keep everybody focused and motivated. But I just think back on some people that were just instrumental, and the decisions that I made based on my trust in myself and my ability to achieve it. Okay, which gets back to this idea of just having a good plan and being persistent. And quite honestly, when I look back, in fact, I have friends and people I've known for years, and frat brothers, and we all go our different ways. And sometime when we get together, I'll just stand back and look at them and just see how different we are, but how much alike we are. That everyone landed on their own star. Everyone landed, where they were supposed to land. But the most important thing is that it seemed that everyone was pleased and satisfied and had a completeness in their life because they felt comfortable in reaching their plan. So the idea of things that you hear, small things that may come out during the career, I think the key is when you begin to get to a position to where you can, consciously look out and touch and feel and get to put in perspective others and others' feedback and others' comments, because that's the key. You don't need that to make the decision, but it certainly allows you to reflect on how important that decision was.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm often drawn to in this particular chapter is when he talks about you have to be willing to make decisions quickly. And I heard you talk about this earlier. Make decisions not necessarily based on analysis, but allow the analysis to kind of inform your decision, but make the decision quickly and then be willing to change it slowly. That seems to be the opposite of what I see a lot of people doing. We have a tendency to want to procrastinate and to use analysis and consultants and all this other information to be our reason for procrastinating. How has the ability to make quick decisions and leverage and lean on your gut, how has that affected the success that you're having today?
Oh, it makes life so much easier. Okay, it just makes everything so much easier. And I, believe that what has helped me was my undergraduate training in electrical engineering. When you have to get down into the fundamentals of so much about nature and so much about how things really work. You know, I walk into a room and, you know, the average person turn on a light switch and it goes lights on. You know, in my mind, I see electrons flowing. Okay. I mean, and when you get all of that embedded, just as making decisions, if you know what you know, and you know what you don't know, okay, then it's a lot easier to feel comfortable with making the right decision. Okay, most people, and I say most, in my experience, and the people that I've worked with and people that have worked for me, tend to overthink, tend to want to find something that's not there. And a lot of it is because you didn't start out, you know, in your discipline or whatever you're trying to achieve. You didn't start out truly understanding what it would take to get there. I knew that to get from engineering to project management, not only did I have to learn the discipline of project management, but I had to had to feel like, now what would I feel like when I become a project manager? Okay. And once I got that feeling, that's the comfort. Now, what would I move from project management to a vision manager? What would it feel like to be, you know, and I remember I had a mentor who was very instrumental. He's also a Tennessee State graduate, Napoleon Humbuckle. Okay. He was the guy that was instrumental in getting me into Motorola back in 1979 when I had just spent 5 years in engineering and realized I wanted to go do something else. And I quickly made the decision to move from Honeywell and computers to Motorola project management. Never looked back, never had to. And I remember Nape and I was sitting somewhere in Washington, D.C., because most of our clients was back in that area. We were the government part of Motorola. And Nape and I was sitting back after a good meeting. We had accomplished all the things that we want to accomplish in that meeting. And he's going to kill me. He looked back and said, Cobb, I wonder what the Po folks are doing. Okay. You got to have that mentality that I want it, commit to it, make the decision. And when you make that decision, don't be afraid to realize that you're there, because that's just a platform for the next decision.
Boy, that's I hope everyone's taking notes. I hope everyone is taking notes, because this is a rich conversation with someone who's been there and someone who leverages these principles on a weekly, if not daily basis. Peter, you better get back in here, man. I could have a one-on-one conversation at this guy's feet.
Yeah, Earl, I love that last statement that you made, because it actually made me reflect on decisions that I've made historically, but also about decisions that I'm getting ready to make or making now as I move forward. And once I make them, I don't need to look back. I got to just go strive forward, burn the bridges behind me, and take off. And for those of you who are listening and watching, Charlotte, we see you, of course, against Ashana, Regina, we see you all as there. Thank you so much for the comments. Please, if you have questions for Earl, bring them to the table. Let us make sure that we address them as well. But as you think about your own decisions, reflect on how they manifested, number one, but now two, second half of 2021, as I mentioned earlier, we're here on July 3rd. What are your decisions that you're making today for the balance of the year, or even for the balance of your life/career? Ann McNeil has asked you all to share them with us, for sure. Share them with us and put them out into the atmosphere, into the universe. And hopefully you do have a mastermind that is holding you accountable and moving forward. Ann McNeil, I want to bring you to the conversation for sure, because Earl has already dropped a lot of gems right in our paths for us to be able to scoop up and apply for our lives moving forward. But I know that you have some gems of questions for Earl to be able to assist those of us who are listening as well. So yes, please.
Well, Earl, one of the questions, actually, we're having a conversation before the show started, and I just happened to ask the question of each of us as co-hosts, and of course, you as our guest, what was one decision? I'm laughing because I'd like to ask you to share that with the guests. And I mentioned I'm wearing this pin. I don't know if you can see that. It says, I'm wearing a pin that says NABWIC, and that stands for the National Association of Black Women in Construction. And many years ago, that was a decision that I made But it took me about 10 years to make the decision. And oftentimes I reflect on many people that I did not connect with during that time. But you shared before the show started, when I asked the question, you went back to uh, asking your wife to marry you. So can you share that experience and the decision that you made to do that and the impact of that decision? Because that's what this is about. Many of us, and rereading the story of the decision principle and the founding fathers and the decision that they made that was life or death. But this decision may not be life or death, but this decision might impact the lives of others. And so, can you share with us uh, that decision and the impact you feel it has made in your life?
Sure, sure. Now, for those of you who've read the book and Decisions, you know that this is a timely Napoleon Hill topic today as we're celebrating the 4th of July and Independence Day. And if you recall in your reading, right at the end, after the draft of the Constitution, a decision had to be made. And it really was a commitment by all of the 56 people that was at that constitutional convention to sign. And each of them realized that they just weren't signing to say, I was here, or just signing to say, I'm agreeing to have to do whatever the British government does once we say that we are rebelling, okay? But it also meant that there was the risk that you were signing away your life. Mm-hmm. Well, September 4th of this year, I would have signed away and made a commitment to a lady named Charlotte Grant, who's now Charlotte Grant Cobb, PhD, by the way. And when we were talking before the show about how decisions work, Anne was so astute to recognize that we make decisions that at the time you may not realize the impact of that decision. It may be years later, and you can just stand back and see all of the branches that have grown from making that decision. Well, when the reason I say when Charlotte accepted me as her husband was because during that time, I was, reaching the peak of my career at Motorola. She was very active. She was a stockbroker, a banker in her activity. And we went down to visit my parents. I was born in a little town in middle Georgia called Vienna. And my parents still stayed in the 4-room house that my dad built after work and where he raised 7 kids, okay? And as we spent time with my mom and dad there and saw us hoovering around this little gas heater at night, I reflected back upon the times when I was growing up in that house. And at night, I go bring in the coal, but back then we had coal. And then when we go to bed, me and my brothers would get in one bed, my sisters would get in the other room, and we'd put all these blankets on us just to stay warm. And just me reflecting on that, and having a wife like Charlotte to start the discussion, we decided, to make a long story short, to build my parents a new home. And it turned out to be just not an act of things, an act of what we did. It turned out to be a process. And it was a process, a decision that we made that contained a process that not only affected mom and dad, we think they lived 20, 30 years longer, okay, because of that new house that they were able to live in the last years of their house, but also the relationships with my brothers and sisters. And then when I think about all of the good times that we had in that house, I think about the nieces, the nephews that now have their own kids, and so that story to me says the genesis of all of that, okay, happened on September 4th, 1982, when I said, I do.
Wow. Okay, Peter, Galen, because I am going back in time, and for all of us listening, we really want to pull you into this conversation because every single one of us have made decisions that have impacted the lives of so many people, positive and negatively. Let's say that again, positively and negative. But one of the philosophers said, nothing is either good nor bad. It is the thinking that makes it so. And so some decisions that we make that may appear to be negative decisions, when you understand how to turn it for your good, because all things do still work together for your good, you know the rest of that story. But being able to understand the power of every decision you make, like showing up today. So we're going to challenge and ask each of you listening in, put in the chat a decision you need to make or a decision that you've made that have impacted others. But Earl, I want to go back to a question, a comment, actually from your wife that she put the chat, and I think you can see it about the youth because I think so many youth are making decisions, and I totally agree with her question. So many youth, and we made them too, are making decisions today that they really don't understand quite yet the impact of that one decision. So she'd ask you to comment on that.
Yes. And, we have three grandkids, and the two younger ones, he'll be 16, and Jaden, he'll be 16 in August, and Destiny, she'll be a teenager, believe it or not, 13 in November. And I just sit back and think how difficult it must be to be a young person in today's society. Not because, every generation went through something. We remember the bell bottoms, right? And the bump and twist, right? But just think about it, that, young people don't really, their minds, their brain doesn't really develop until they're in their early 20s to the level that they will expand and capture all of who they are. Okay. And what the young people are facing today is all of these influences. Okay. I mean, right now, when I call some of my friends and we talk about it, even my 68-year-old brain is beginning to get tired of all the influences. And can you imagine what young people, teenagers, or people in their 20s or having to sift through if you realize the fact, okay, as one of my favorite authors, okay, Dr. Daniel Kokeman, the famed psychologist, says, is that when someone asks us a question, we respond. Well, we respond in our consciousness, but most of what goes on thinking and putting those thoughts and beliefs or whatever in our mind is done in our subconscious. And until you understand that, this is everyone's mind, until you understand that and learn how to sift through that and go back to your system two thinking, your more deeper thinking more often, your initial thoughts, your comments are just coming out of, and you don't know how they got there. Can you imagine how difficult that is for young people to have to deal with that type of thing? And I have always believed, and now Charlotte suggests this because she is a coach, is that one way to help teenagers and young people, is to be around them, bring them, spend time with them, okay? Because one thing external influences can't do is that they can't get into the young people's mind any quicker or any firmer than what they see. If they can be around you and see compassion, if they can be around you and see that you think twice before you cut once, if they can be around you to understand your relationship with God, if they can be around you to see the laughter, okay, if they can be around you to do those things. And one of the things that came back to us quickly here is last summer we brought our two young great kids out, and before they left, they were at our Savannah home where we are now for a couple of weeks. Before they left, we had them make I made a little quick video of them and say, what do you think about Grammy and Poppy? Would you come back to visit us, and so on. And my young daughter, who was 11 at the time, and I said, well, what do you think, sweetheart? She said, well, what I really enjoyed most, okay, was sitting around and watching Death in Paradise as a family, coming from an 11-year-old, okay? She knew that we'd said they had never seen the Death in Paradise series, which is just a great series, by the way, if you got Netflix. But they just got so captured in that mystery, how they solve problems or whatever. And what she loved is we did it as a family. So do things with your children and the young people around you. Don't just every minute is so valuable. Do something where they can see you living what you say in your words.
Such great conversation overall. Great comments coming in the chat. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for that question. Yvette and Doretha, love your comments about your parents' decisions that they've made that have brought you even to this point right now while you're here on this show. What are the decisions that have impacted your life that have brought you to this moment? And I also love the mentoring question because it also takes me back to masterminds, it takes me to accountability. And Galen, as I talk about those two words, accountability and mastermind, it allows me to think about an annual meeting that we hold on a regular basis. And I was hoping you could share a little bit about that and its importance.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is an incredible conversation that really talks about the importance of relationship. A theme through what I heard Mr. Cobb talk about is, yeah, he's learned some things. He's done some specific things of import, but it was those relationships as he reflects back that have allowed him to be able to do those things and do have those accomplishments. A place that we meet every year is this annual meeting where we come together with like-minded people and we have to bring our life in writing. So what is it that you've accomplished, and why the bringing your life in writing is so important is because everything makes sense in our head, right? Everything connects in our head. But when you have to put it in writing and then be prepared to share it with other people, that brings a level of accountability, that brings a level of inspection that just doesn't work the same way in your head. Not only do you have to bring your life in writing for the past year, but also reveal your plans for the upcoming year. And I love the way Miss Ann shares that if you can't demonstrate that you've done what you said you were going to do over the past year, we all have these goals that we say we're going to accomplish. If you can't demonstrate that you've done what you said you were going to do this past year, then how can you have confidence that you're going to do what you say you're going to do over the upcoming year? And the people that you will meet, the people that will speak into your life, they're going to be there to help. First of all, help you fill in any spaces that you might have in your plan, but give you the motivation, give you the accountability, so that you actually do the things that you say that you're going to do in order to live the kind of life that you say that you want to have. One of the most convicting moments of this entire process for me is we have to write down, towards the end of the meeting, write down 3 things that you say you're going to accomplish by the midpoint. By the midpoint of this upcoming year, what are 3 things that you're going to say you're going to have accomplished? And it's a worthwhile activity to write those things down. Again, commit it to paper. But do you know that around June 3rd to June 15th, you're going to get a letter in the mail, and that letter is going to look like your handwriting, and it's going to be those 3 things that you said you were going to accomplish by this point in your year. And that's the most convicting thing in the world, because what we're talking about is not wasting our life, not wasting our time, but making sure that we're focused on the things that we say is important. So definitely worthwhile. I would encourage everyone to log in, register now. It is absolutely a worthwhile use of your time. And I can't think of any better way to kick off 2022 than with meeting with people who are really invested in you living your best life.
Good stuff. Good stuff, Galen. Overall, it allows me to take a step back and ask myself, who is holding me accountable for my decisions, right? Yes, she is holding me accountable for my decisions for sure.
Uh,
And and so now all of you who are watching, right? Who is in your circle that is also holding you accountable for your decisions,
Let's
right?
ask them to put it in the chat. Put it in the chat,
Oh, yes.
the name in the chat.
We're holding you accountable right now,
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen who are watching.
yeah, Peter, if you don't mind, I
Please.
want to say with all my heart, we come on every single Saturday, literally 52 weeks. Yes, we do. And I've been in, like Earl's talking about, we haven't talked about this yet, Earl, but Blog Talk is one of my favorites. So that's another subject for another day. So but we started this on Blog Talk maybe 15 years ago. And this is a decision principle we're discussing with you today. And everything you've heard, I want to go back to what Galen talked about. Because when I began to create this experience for the annual meeting, it was out of my own life. Every single line, every single area, spiritually, financially, family-wise, my health, my education, my personal development, the businesses, the recreation, creativity, and civic areas, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20. I'm in my 40th year right now. But what if I did not make that decision? What if I didn't have people who were holding me accountable? That first set of mastermind groups, 10 people, then 100. And I cannot, I just don't want to leave this show. Earl has shared some gems, and I don't want us to leave this show with you listening to us like many of you do every Saturday without making a commitment to yourself and to those people and those dreams that only came to you. Only you can give them life,
yes.
or they're going to die with you forever. So what decision must you make today? Earl has a date in his mind. He gave that date, the date he met his wife, and she said yes. You all have heard mine, December 31st, 1979, when I picked up that book called Think and Grow Rich. And just the thought, I think back to the hundreds of people that I've employed. I've hired over 100 interns. What if I didn't read the book and take action on it and decide? You see, these decisions are not big decisions. They're one little decision at a time. And so I'm not hosting the show, but I just can't get off of this in talking to each of you that's listening, and even all of us that's on the show. We make decisions every single day, and sometimes, we're lazy, we procrastinate. But the realization and the idea that somebody will only hear your voice, and you've been called for such a time as this, and if you don't act, I want, when you ready to go, I want those ghosts to visit you and say, only you gave us life. Peter, you can take this because I can preach them.
Well,
This is serious.
so insightful, so actually so deep there. And as you reflect on these decision-making process, I want to mention a comment that Laverne made in the chat, actually a question that she made. And also I'm going to help that segue into decisions that we all are making who are on the show. That's Earl and Galen and myself for our futures. But, we've made decisions in the past. We've not made decisions in the past, or maybe we've made decisions in the past that we should not have made. One thing about the past decisions is we can't go back and undo the decisions that we made in the past. We can't go backwards. What you can do right now is commit to making decisions now and moving forward that are only going to benefit you, your career, your life, and your sphere of influence, family, friends, whatever the case may be. Now is the time that you can impact your future for the better. And so now, as we're looking to bring this show to a close, we have wheels down right now. Galen, I'm gonna ask you to share with us some decisions that you're making for the future, but also share how we can stay in touch with you, Galen Bingham.
Yeah, great conversation, and there's just so much that I've gotten from this, and I want to really commend and thank and just demonstrate my appreciation for Mr. Cobb for being so transparent with what has contributed to and what has been the result of such a long career, because we all have this temptation to keep our successes to ourselves, and I've found that it's in the sharing where people really benefit. They benefit from watching, they benefit from hearing the stories, and that's one of the things that I've committed to is really just being transparent. One of the decisions that I made actually at the beginning of this year was to transition a podcast vehicle that I had for about 3 years, but transition that podcast to one that was a lot more transparent. And so we launched Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership at the beginning of this year. And it really is just more of this kind of conversation where we gather people who have done some amazing things, and we just ask them to be transparent with what it takes to be successful. So one of there are several ways you can get in touch with me, but one of the most fun ways is to subscribe to Whiskey, Jazz, and
Yes.
Leadership on any podcast platform. I double dog dare you to check us out. We are in the process of closing season 1 because we've had such great guests, and we're going to be launching season 2. But check us out on any platform, and we're going to share real talk that you can't get anywhere else. Real talk, very similar to what Earl has blessed us with this morning. And so thank you so much. I've learned a lot, and just so thankful that you're able to join us.
Love that decision you made about Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership, Galen. We are holding you accountable to blow that thing out of the water, for sure. And McNeil, decisions that you're making, and how do we stay in touch with you?
Well, I've made a decision every mid-year to host a mid-year virtual meeting for your life in preparation for your annual meeting. And we're hosting that this year on July 31st, 2021. And I do that because, as Galen talked about the annual meeting, this decision to write goals, and I'm going to go over the 10 areas again. This is what we're going to discuss for your life on July 31st, 2021 from 1 to 5 p.m. And you can get the details on my website at annmcneil.com. But I want each of you to think about, what did you decide in the beginning of the year? What were those decisions you made in the beginning of the year? Spiritually, just one thing. And your family, just one thing. Your finances, your education, your health, get those exams. What about your personal growth and development to become the very best in your craft and expert? What about your business? What about your recreation, creativity, and your civic area? Just 6 months. Join us on the 31st of July, and we will help hold you accountable for those goals. All right. Ann McNeil, the master builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life. And Earl, you blessed us today, sir. Thank you so very much.
He has definitely blessed us today there, Earl. Earl, so now we're panning back to you, sir. And, decisions now that you're making or have made recently, but are making now for the future. I know it includes some books that I definitely would love for you to share with us. But also, how can our audience continue to stay in touch with you and your phenomenal journey?
Well, you can reach me at Earl Cobb at reachyourlifellc.com. Now, Richer Life is the name of the company that I founded back in 2010. And people asked me, are you giving away money? I said, no. Our Richer Life means a life full of good decisions, financial security, great relationships, loving family memories, and a feeling of completeness. And last year, as we were sitting in the pandemic here in our Savannah home, my wife and I asked the question, why is it so hard? Okay. And we started writing a manuscript that we completed about actually a couple of weeks ago. And it's why is it so hard becoming a people person in the post-COVID-19 era? And by people person, our definition or our characterization is that a people person is an individual who acts daily upon the belief that the pinnacle of human life is not anchored in misinformation, egotism, tribalism, hatred, jealousy, or selfishness, but in one striving to bring out the best in oneself as a human being and respecting the uniqueness and humanity of others. So our journey, one part of our journey from now on, is to strive for us and for as many people as we can to become a people person.
Loving that, Earl. Earl, I desire to be a people person, actually. So I'm glad you mentioned that for sure. So those of you who are watching, stay in touch with Earl. Pick up a copy of his book. I love the title of his business, because it ties in very closely to Think and Grow Rich. So phenomenal. Earl, thank you so much for being our distinguished guest today. You brought so much energy and so much reflection on our own selves and how we can help to make decisions, better decisions for our lives moving forward. My name is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. We've brought to you another Think and Grow Rich Mastermind live show today. And I want to finish off by asking you all, what decisions are you making in your life today, moving forward? Who is holding you accountable? And we've identified ways that you can get accountability partners here. Decisions that I make, I reflect on the decisions that I'm making right now, whether it is my 21st century leadership development and a mastermind series that I'm implementing beginning next month. For those of you who are interested in leadership development and also to be held accountable in a mastermind environment, please make sure that you sign up. Take a look at the link that is in the chat right now. But also, moving forward now, as Ann had identified, what are some things that you need to put in place right now in order to blow up your life, blow up your business, blow up your career on a number of different levels? And again, who is holding you accountable? Galen and Ann are both holding me accountable. So now I have to ask you, who is holding you accountable for your decisions? If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can find me on any social media platform at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAJames, or at shiftyourmindset.com. And Earl, again, thank you so much for joining us this week. Ann and Galen, and look forward to seeing you again very shortly. And for all of those of you who are listening and watching, please bring a friend next time. Please bring a family member. Please bring a guest of yours to our show to be impacted by decisions so that they can be impacted for the decisions they're making in their life moving forward. Until next week, we will see you. Please be safe and have a safe 4th of July weekend. Take care.